All right, many thanks, Oyeyemi Ajayi, for that background report. And to begin our conversation this morning, let me introduce here in the studio the Honorable Minister of Livestock Development, Idi Mukhtar Maiha. A pleasure to welcome you back to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, and good morning, Nigeria.
So, do we say, okay, maybe not quite 1 month in office. What has takeoff been for you in trying to actualize the goals, the objectives of creating the Ministry of Livestock Development?
Thank you very much. Just as you rightly pointed out, we just new in the ministry. The first task today is to ensure that there's a seamless transfer of the assets, both human and material, from the former Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, asset sharing, as well as trying to make sure that we have a convenient office accommodation, sufficient and convenient office accommodation, as well as establish a structure. Recall that only 2 departments are coming to the new ministry from the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. And if we look at our mandate, we need to expand to cover sufficient areas that are beckoning for attention across the livestock value chain. Also recall that the new ministry had just come midstream towards the end of the 2024 financial year, and therefore we are using this opportunity to develop our organogram, get the competencies that are required under our mandate, and trying to onboard ourselves and everybody else coming into the new ministry. So basically, we have used the time from the creation to date to be able to sensitize ourselves to our new mandate, establish the necessary structures, get the competencies that are required, and then make consultations, and then understand fully the presidential committee on the implementation of livestock reforms, co-chaired by Professor Muhammad Jega, Atairu Jega, so that we understand 3 things. 1, what are the lower hanging fruits for immediate action? What are those in the immediate short term? What are the long term goals? So basically, this is what we have been busy doing.
All right. I listened to you when you assumed office as minister of this ministry, and you spoke about modernizing the livestock industry. Tell us, what is in that package when you say you want to modernize the livestock industry in the country?
Thank you. To modernize something, to move something from point A to point B, you need to understand what is the context of point A. Where are we coming from? Our livestock sector has not had this intense focus since independence until date. In fact, there were agricultural programs that never even mentioned a single line on livestock, if you go back in time. And we have this on record. The books are there, the programs are there. The livestock was taken for granted. But it shouldn't be part of the formal transformation of the wider agricultural sector. But however, with the creation of this ministry, we now have that intention to focus intensely on the livestock sector. But like I said, where are we coming from? This country is endowed with a large number of livestock. You start mentioning, for instance, from rabbits, poultry, sheep, goats, piggery, camels, donkeys, horses, cattle. The total number of ruminants, when I say ruminants here, I mean cattle, sheep, and goats, and camels. Donkeys are not ruminants, they are monogastric.
Okay.
We have about 158 million spread across the length and breadth of this country. Now, if you look at piggery, poultry, and the macro livestock, we have a huge number. And by any reckoning, even by international standard, we are probably number 10 or thereabout. But again, juxtapose this against the other natural endowments, the vast amount of arable land, and I don't believe there is no land that is arable. Every land is arable. The river system, the water system, the weather, and above all, the internal market. It is huge. In spite of all these endowments, in spite of all these resources, we have failed to realize the value and importance of the livestock sector until recently. The practices have been very, very traditional. Those who have cattle are still steeped in traditional holding. They migrate from point one to point B in search of greener pasture and water. The breed is still a traditional breed. Their performance, milk production is very, very low, one of the lowest in the world. Carcass weight is also very, very low. And that runs across the performance of even our horses compared to Argentinian horses. So the whole idea today is to modernize this sector. And by modernity, what do we mean by modernity here is the question of upscaling the performance of these resources. Now, how do you upscale? Let me take an example, for instance, of the cow. It's already been known that our cows hardly give you 2-3 liters in a day. Their counterparts elsewhere, even in the country where you have peri-urban producers. And what I mean by peri-urban producers, there are those ranchers and other dairy farm operators who have upgraded their cattle or acquired exotic breeds, whose performance today is in contrast to our own local breed. It's probably 25, 40, 50, 60 liters per day from one cow, while ours is doing 2 liters. So that's what we mean by performance. If you look at, for instance, carcass weight of a bull, our bulls hardly reach 383, 400 kg. By the time you process that animal, you get only 55% of valuable meat. The rest are byproducts. Now, other breeds are doing 600, 700 kilograms of body weight. So you can see the disparity. Again, if you look at in terms of management, if you drill down, you find out that the rate of growth from birth of our cows, those others, because of the improved genetic potentials, they record probably 1 kilogram additional body weight gain every day, while ours are struggling. And this is about management. Then you look at the feed conversion ratio. How much of feed is being turned into either milk or body weight? Our conversion rate, the conversion ratio of our animal is still very, very suboptimal. So these are the kind of processes we're talking about. So if you juxtapose this traditional holding and genetically low potential animals that we have, and then migrate them, the process of migrating them to a modern, high-performing livestock is what we mean by modernization. But how do you achieve that? How do you achieve that? Let me give an example. If a cow moves today for 1 kilometer, it is losing 12 kilocalories because of that exercise of moving. Now, if all our animals are moving, how can they, with that expending energy, the energy balance is negative, and the animal requires that energy quantum to transform into milk or body weight. So the sheer drudgery of moving, drains all the reserve energy that should have gone into manufacturing milk or body weight.
But is that all that there is? Isn't it the type that we have, the species that we have? Is there anything else that goes into breeding that makes it become that much productive?
Yeah, the genetic component is key. But again, the issue of nutrition is also a big factor. Because basically, when the animals move about, they are just moving, but they are not grazing. They pick whatever they can get along the way. So there is no particular area that you scale, a grazing area that is rich in terms of density of available highly nutritious grasses. It is not there. They are just moving and picking things along the way. So you cannot call that grazing. They are just migratory. So again, the issue here is, what do we do to ensure, and it has been demonstrated, that even the local breed, if they are sedentary, if you take them to a ranch or a dairy farm where the drudgery of having to move is not there, it's eliminated, and there is sufficient high quality feed, good veterinary and health practices, the performance improves. But the improvement here is limited by genetics. It's limited by genetics. So basically this is what I'm saying. That look, instead of remaining with that local breed, you need to cross it, inject superior genetics so that you can up the performance. Now, let me give you an example. I know how to drive. If you take me to a Grand Prix and give me a Lamborghini, can I win that race?
Not at all.
Not at all. If you take a champion of a Grand Prix and you give him a title of the 60s to go to Grand Prix to compete along with Lamborghinis, can he win that race? It cannot. So it's a function of two factors. Number one, the genetic potential has to be improved. Number two, the management practices has to change.
So from what you're saying, are we going to see an end to open grazing in the country?
Basically, our intention is if you want to modernize, you have to do two things. Number one, encourage people to invest. By encouraging people, investors in this country, who have seen the value in livestock value chain and want to go in. That way, you can quickly shorten your gestation period to modernize the sector. But looking at the fact that more than 85% of the cattle resources are in the hands of pastoralists, we cannot neglect that. We also have to have a conversation with them. And that conversation is going to go through this. We know the grazing reserves in this country. There are about 417. They are all located in local governments. And to be able to assess this, we need a critical engagement with executive governors, local government chairmen, and community leaders to assess those grazing reserves, evaluate what is there in terms of their readiness to receive animals, give them infrastructure for husbandry as well as for their families. So what we are going to do here is that those grazing reserves, we will have to regrass them. By regrassing, I mean we get local and exotic species of grasses that can survive in this country, and there are so many that can do in this country. Put them there, build the capacity of the pastoralists themselves to know that this is what the animals require. Provide clean, potable water for the animals. Provide amenities, social and economic amenities for them to remain there. Now we intend to create out of these grazing reserves hub of economic activities, like a cluster, agricultural cluster, where it can attract other interests, business interests, in terms of milk processors, packaging, cold chain transportation, abattoirs, etc., etc. So this is the intention of the ministry. The grazing reserves, the first grazing reserve was established in 1957, even before independence. Between then and now, we have a total land of 4.3 million hectares of land under the grazing reserve. Some are gazetted, others are not gazetted. But we need to have a conversation with the executive governors and the local government chairman and the community leaders, the RO system under the Fulani system, so that we can have an understanding. Ensure that, look, this cannot continue. You cannot change a moving object. You cannot do breed improvement if animals are moving. You need them in a particular place so that you can have the data.
So long term, we're going to see an end to open grazing in the country.
Exactly, this is the intention of Mr. President. That is the mandate of this ministry.
But how?
For us to realize the full benefits of our livestock resources in a gradual process, this is the ultimate aim of the ministry, so that we can realize the full benefits. And let me give you an example. For instance, in a city, and I said this before, where everybody is slaughtering anywhere, the byproducts of that animal you are slaughtering, all of them have economic value. If, for instance, in a city of 20,000 people, every animal that will be slaughtered is slaughtered in a designated abattoir by legislation and by enforcement, and by the driving force of the need to get value for the products. The blood of every animal that you slaughter will go to making fish meal. If you debone, you remove the meat from the bones. The bones, the hoofs, the horns are all byproducts that are of value to another industry. The hide and skin itself, we have estimated today the value of the hide and skin industry, the leather industry today in the country is about 23 billion naira. And it has the potential to create 700,000 jobs. But it's disparate. There's no aggregation. You don't aggregate the blood, you don't aggregate the waste, which goes into making organic fertilizer, you don't aggregate the skins, you don't aggregate the horns, you don't aggregate the hoofs, you don't aggregate the bones. So all these are byproducts. But if you go to any standard abattoir internationally, nothing goes to waste. And the same thing goes for poultry. Even the poultry feathers are being exported to some other countries, and it can be used internally. So all these are processes of modernization where people can gain economic value. And the whole intention here is that we want to transform this industry into a vibrant, sustainable, and internationally competitive industry that can create jobs for people. Look at the value chain that I've just mentioned. If, for instance, in this city we are slaughtering 5,000 cattle every day, imagine the amount of blood that can now lead to speeding off other fish millers who will now use the blood. But if every slaughtering everywhere, you can aggregate the blood. 1 liter there, 1 liter in Guagualada, another liter in Nyanya, another liter in Suleja. It can happen.
But you wonder if this ministry can actually achieve all of this. If you want to compare with the Ministry of Agriculture, for example, over the years, processing, having to take food crops from the farms and process them has been a challenge. And that's why, I mean, that industry is not booming like it should. From what you're saying, how would the livestock ministry, you know, be able to take it away from raw materials into processed materials? Because all of that also requires another process. Is the ministry planning to partner, or what's the way out of that?
The ministry is not going to do that. Our mandate is to create that enabling environment for investors, local and foreign, to come in. And we have seen the appetite. We have seen the appetite. In the last few weeks, since we returned from Brazil, we have seen a lot of interest, both foreign and local. And there has been a lot of intentions before. But somehow, it didn't just germinate. We are not the ones to run the abattoir. Ours is to provide that enabling environment. Ease of doing business, okay? Infrastructure, legislation, etc., etc. And then also making that, trying to de-risk the environment. We are going to have stakeholder engagement with a lot of development finance institutions. And a lot of these things are generating interest. Because hitherto, people have been just in the dark about the value chains in the livestock sector. And I do believe many people even didn't know that the blood of animals slaughtered in abattoir is feed for another industry.
I didn't know, for one.
You see? Nobody probably knew that hoofs of a cow, horns of a cow, bones, if you debone, it has export value. In fact, even the bile of a cow is being exported today out of this country. And many people didn't know. So our own mandate is to blow this out and put it in the public domain so that people can say, look, this is an opportunity for me. Let me go in. Look at the growth of pasture, for instance, grass. I personally sold bales of grasses in this country, and the demand is still very high. Just growing pasture grass is enough business for you, particularly if you want to make it commercial. There is an export opportunity. Countries from the Middle East approach this country, they want to export grass from Nigeria. That in itself is a big business. And if investors want to go into commercial pasture cultivation, it can also trigger equipment leasing. Because if you are into pasture 2,000-3,000 hectares of land, you don't have to run a tractor. Somebody with a business will say, look, these guys need tractor, they need mowers, they need balers, they need rake, they need twines. Let me invest in that. So instead of trying to buy tractors, just focus on cultivating pasture. Somebody is leasing equipment, so you just pick up the phone and call him. I have 2,000 hectares of land. I want land preparation. He can come and do it for you. So the trouble, the burden of having to own equipment, maintain them yourself, is taken off you. So that's another business. The logistics itself, we are talking about cold chain. If, for instance, we process meat in Kano and that meat should come to Abuja, it's cold chain. That's another business angle that people we are not even looking at. Look at dairy, for instance. Milk has the shortest lifespan. If you take milk out of the cow, in the next 4 or 5 hours, it's going bad. Not going bad. It's going to culture will begin to happen to it. So again, that is another business. Cold chain transportation and packaging. So the ministry is there to create that enabling environment for investors to come in. That is our duty. That is our role. That is our mandate.
All right.
And that's why we started to have total engagement to sensitize people on the importance of this ministry, the centrality of the ministry, and the intention of Mr. President to modernize this industry.
All right. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much. Let me now introduce our second guest, Ilyasu Bulama, who is the National President of National Association of Cattle Dealers, Processors, and Marketers of Nigeria. A pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
Let me get you straight into this conversation. The minister has spoken about quite a number of things, given an overview. And he talked about grazing reserves and the need to revamp them, for lack of another word now. Would you say that the grazing reserves that are existent at the moment are sufficient to take care of all the cattle that we have in the country? If not, how do you think the ministry can bridge the gap?
Well, thank you so much, and I'm very happy to be here, and my minister is here because, like he said, the whole system is now under the ministry, and they are in charge of giving enabling environment for our business to be done. The grazing reserves we have, to me, if we can utilize them, they are very, very okay. Because if we can get grass in that grazing reserve throughout the year, I don't think there will be any issue or conflict between herders and farmers, because the clashes used to happen as a result of looking for where they will go and graze. So if we can get grasses, at least where there is water, the grasses will be there to grow. Where they don't have, maybe they will have boreholes, industrial boreholes that will help them to have the grasses. I don't think a planting man who has a grazing reserve in his area will prefer to leave that area and go to another area. He would like to stay where he is, remain with his people around him and do all his business within the area. But because they don't have it, they will prefer, okay, I can't see a cow going down my shedding here. I have to move to another place so that my cow will look a little bit better and I can have a better product. So the grazing reserve we have are okay. If the ministry will help us to at least encourage the further production, less people go into the production of grasses. It's a good business where many people will be employed, not even in the grazing reserve. If you happen to know that you can grow your grasses and the market is there, somebody will prefer to even grow grass than going to crop production, because he makes his money. The more you produce, the more you sell. The buyers are there. Go to North now. We have a lot of stock and we need the feed. So I think it's a good one, sir.
And do you think that, yes, you may say they are enough when you aggregate it, but are they, because you are talking about not migrating now, so are they in places localized enough, to reach every cattle breeder, for instance? Are they not central as well?
You see, in every community, like where I know, for instance, in Jigawa State, we have what we call Gandundaji. That is grazing reserve in Hausa. That place is meant for grazing. Nobody is farming in the land. It's empty land that is allowed for grazing. So I think so many states have such. And this grazing reserve were created since before independence, as the minister says. So they are there already. The map is there. People would know. And in some places now, it was encouraged.
Okay.
People are farming in the grazing reserve. In some places, they sold it. Like I see one in here, FCT, this Karshi. The grazing reserve, the signboard is there, building of the structures is there, but it's already sold. Houses are built inside. Hardly you can see 2 floors inside that grazing reserve where herders will go and graze.
It's been built up.
It's built up here, not in FCT.
So are you saying that if the grazing reserves are available, those who move around with their cattle would stop?
They will. They don't have reason to move because what they are looking for grass. If they can feed their cattle where they are, they don't have to
What
move.
about the excuse given in the past when such laws try to come up in some states? Some people saying it's their way of life, it's their culture, to move with this cattle.
No, it's not like that. They move because they have to look for grasses to feed their animal. Go to north now. In some places you cannot see grasses. After 1 or 2 months now, they will start looking for alternative areas to graze their cattle. If they have their grasses there, nobody is willing to be moving up and down. It's not a matter of culture. No, it's because they don't have, and they have to look for alternative. As human being, you must eat and drink. Likewise, animals must to survive if they eat and drink. They cannot survive without eating or drinking. And you cannot get a quality meat, a quality milk without giving them the correct feed.
All right.
So a herder has to move and look for what
in order for them to graze.
All right. Many thanks, Mr. Bolama. Let's get back to the minister now. He mentioned the farmer herders crisis, and that's a major issue. How does the ministry, away from the grazing reserve which you have talked about, but how do you intend to deal with that particular issue, the farmer herders clashes?
Thank you. There were times when these clashes were not there. It's a competition for resources, scarce resources. Like Mr. Bolama mentioned, animals have to eat. Every living being has to eat. Now, the tendency here, like it has been pointed out, is to go and look for where you can graze your animals and water your animals. And in the process, you encroach into farms, you graze your animals in the farms, etc., etc. There used to be a traditional conflict resolution mechanism. And that mechanism was, look, nobody should take the law into their hands. If your area has been encroached, your farm has been violated, your farm has been eaten, don't retard it immediately. There are traditional authorities where you can lay a complaint. And this had worked since the 60s and early 70s. I know this, I witnessed this as a child, as a growing up adolescent, I witnessed this. Nobody then took the laws into their hands. One. Number two, over time, there has been issues of compromises here and there. And that mechanism, conflict resolution mechanism, somehow broke down because of certain compromises along the line. So people decided, look, if I go there, I will not get justice. But one sensibility has not brought, insensibility cannot bring it. What I mean here is this, that by resorting to self-help, you are just escalating the thing beyond proportion. And that's what we have been witnessing. Everybody will now break the law with impunity. The herder will graze on someone else's, a farmer's land, and the farmer will say, look, I will retaliate. And then there are reprisals attack here and there, and before you know it, it becomes a huge bonfire that consumes communities, destroy properties, destroy life, and break confidence. But otherwise, we have all lived and known the value of livestock in our lives. Animals need spaces. Human beings need spaces. Airport needs spaces. There is no how you can run a business without a given area. Even aeroplanes have to land and take off. They need a space. So therefore, the herder needs a space, the farmer needs a space. How do we come to meet terms? How do we come to meet terms? So we need that traditional conflict resolution mechanism by stakeholder engagement. We have designed a robust program, learning from incidences, from other efforts done by different sectors of the society, and we do believe that by the time we mount a very, very intensive campaign, sensitization, and we cannot do it from sitting by sitting here in Abuja. We have to go through the state governments, in particular local governments and the traditional system. We do know that, I do know that, every herder in this country belongs to one association or the other. You have Magban, you have Kakran, you have the Arno system. Through these institutionalized associations, we should be able to reach them and have stakeholder engagement with them. It's not a question of imposing a solution. It's a question of, look, this is what is happening in the country. It's bringing a lot of havoc. It's bringing bad international image for us. And it's something that we should be able to manage. We should be able to manage. So let's understand and build confidence. We may come out with systems that go to that of compensation here and there. And let me give you an example. In Kenya today, because those who wildlife protection NGOs, if a lion attacks a Maasai cow, the Maasai will normally take his spear and go after the lion. The NGO says no, this lion has to eat, and this is the lion's food. But because the food that the lion has killed belongs to you, so we will compensate you for your cat to leave the lion to go, and that's how they've been able to maintain the lion population there. We can borrow a leaf from there. It's an issue of justice. It's the issue of social justice for both the herder and the farmer. And I believe by the time they see empirical evidence of this being done by the federal government of Nigeria, people say, look, violence is not even the last resort. It's a no resort at all. The issue is that if there's a conflict, there is a conflict resolution mechanism. You intend to be out there in the field with the local governments and community leaders. We should be able to monitor this and say, look, this is not the way to go about it. We have had violence, it has led us to nowhere. Destruction of life and property, loss of trust and confidence, stigmatization, profiling, etc., etc. We should stop that and begin to imagine, look, we have to have a farmer, we have to have a herder. How do they coexist, value each other's contribution, and commensurately benefit from each other? When I was a kid, I used to know that farmers, not that my father was not a farmer, he was a farmer and a herder. They used to come to ask for permission of our herd to go to their farm and remain there for 2-3 weeks to get manure, while the cattle will feed on the farm residue. This was symbiotic. What happened to that symbiosis? The farmer still requires that manure. You can't always rely on synthetic fertilizer. It has its own value. But the soil fixers we know are animal manure. So that symbiosis is there. And this is what we want to restore. People should understand that this country needs farmers, farmers need herders, herders need farmers.
But there's something else you need to restore, because Elias spoke about the grazing reserves that have been built up. How do you intend to, make them available again for the sole purpose of grazing?
Yeah, for me, in areas where these grazing reserves have been compromised, we will not ask people to leave. We ask the state government to give us another.
That place.
To give us another. Simple. Because again, these are the kind of things that will now raise emotions and tensions. Why should I vacate my house for a herder? No. We don't want to go there via that. Your Excellency, this was allocated. This is the amount of land. It not be gazetted. That means that they had legal encumbrances. But it had been built. whether the building has approval from Cargis or from whatever ministry or arm or the land administration department, we are not going after that. We need an alternative. And for that alternative, we want to choose the location for suitability. We want an area where it's not rocky, where there's a large body of water, so that we can settle people and use that body of water for irrigation. And then the aquifer is quite good, and then we can sink boreholes. But beyond that, we want also to encourage the herders to buy land and get title deeds to those lands themselves. I have a farm. So many people have farms. I have a ranch. So many people have ranches and dairies. They are not grazing reserves. I went to the Ministry of Lands with my application, with my business plan. I needed 100 hectares. They gave me 100 hectares. It's just like you applying to build a primary school or the chief applying to build a hospital. It's the same thing. Why should ranching or dairy farm be different? If you apply with a junior business plan, you pay, the governor can give you title deed, and you settle your farm. So we want to encourage both the herders, and I did that personally. I'm not proud of that. But some years back when I started, I ran across a Fulani man in Kaduna. I told him, look, sell your cattle, 5, 6, 10. Approach the land administration department and get land allocated. He did it, and his cattle, the title belongs to him now. So what difference is there between a primary school, a clinic, an office building, a business premises, and a ranch or a dairy farm? What the governors want is business, genuine legitimate
business. All right. You know, the livestock ministry is not just about the cattle alone. Let's look at poultry, for example, fishery and all of that. What are your plans in that regard?
Yeah, the poultry today, by all standards, is the most successful aspect of the livestock industry in the country. And simply because it has got the required environment, very, very enabling environment to operate. And the single most important factor for that was the availability of feed, the feed millers. They are all over the country. And then for the feed millers too, the amount of grains in the country that we used to grow before, up till now. So there was initially importation of maize, soybean, other constituents, other additives and the rest of them. But by and large, the agricultural sector has done very well to support the feed milling business. And recently that we've had challenges in terms of price spikes, etc. That has led to a number of challenges facing the poultry industry. Many farms across the country have closed because they couldn't compete very well. And that has also led to the escalation in the cost of eggs, and etc., and broiler birds. Now, this is what is happening, but we do believe that the future is bright, in the sense that if you see the bumper harvest this year, I don't have the statistics, I wouldn't go into that, but I do believe that, of course, yeah, people are saying that most of the grains have been exported. People earn foreign exchange. It's a business. So if the demand is high, it will trigger more production, so that the poultry industry can fight its feet. But we do believe that this is something that we need to sit down and look at in terms of what do we need to do to encourage more grain production in terms of farm inputs, extension services, soft loans for farmers, etc., etc. And my senior counterpart in the Ministry of Agriculture, I think the last time we met, we had some discussions along this line, and we do believe that in the next rainy season, we'll see a different radical change from what used to happen. Because it's a process of learning from trends and then understanding the weaknesses, mitigating them, understanding the strength, and then building on top of those ones.
Talking about weaknesses, for the poultry business, for example, you know, a lot of Nigerians who say the fact that the poultry business thrives just anywhere. You rent a one-bedroom, you have a poultry business behind, I mean, and all the health risk and all of that. And then for those who are in it, they say that there are all kinds of medication, I don't know, you can tell me, or feed or whatever it is, that makes the poultry birds bigger than usual, just in a bit to get more, but health-wise, there's a challenge. Do you intend to regulate these businesses? I mean, that has to do with the livestock industry, just so that our health is prioritized at the end of the day?
Yeah, I think 2 days ago we had a meeting with the Nigerian Institute of Animal Science, and this matter came up in the front burner. And not only poultry, our intention here today is to look at the general health and veterinary aspects of our livestock. And there are a lot of issues there. And I do believe that if you look at a lot of endemic diseases in the country, and that is not only related, isolated to poultry, it covers the whole gamut of the industry. So I do believe that people are not using steroids. Nobody is using steroids. But nonetheless, the general aspect of health is important. There are incidences of substandard drugs. I don't want to go deep into that because some of them could be sub judice. We need to go into that, and by going into that, we need to regulate the kind of drugs that come into this country. But even before doing that, we want to surgically look at Nigerian Veterinary Research Institute in Jos to build their capacity so that they can supply all the vaccines that we require in this country. Once that is assured, there will be no room for substandard drugs. That is key. The next one we want to do through the Nigerian Veterinary Council is to build capacity for because all the poultry farmers have the association, Poultry Association of Nigeria. It can be Abuja, it can be Imo, it can be Lagos, it can be Kano, it can be Adamawa. There are poultry associations all over. And through those associations, we want to reach the members to build their capacity so that people get into ethical and value-driven poultry business management because it borders on public health. We also want to go back to what used to happen in the 60s and 70s in terms of meat inspectors. Animals, particularly large animals, will not be slaughtered and they are certified, healthy, with all record of injections and vaccinations. After the slaughtering, there will be meat inspection and certification. And then we also want to introduce traceability. If, for instance, you buy a portion of meat and get back to your kitchen and you find something that is unwholesome, we should be able to trace that meat to the cow and from the cow to the ranch it is coming from. It's a tall order. But Nigerians lived with that in the 60s and 70s. So, and that's an avenue for creating more jobs and getting value for what you are buying as a consumer. So meat, food borders on public health. If there's an outbreak, if you can't trace it, then the wider society is at risk. And you need people to take responsibility for what they are bringing to the market. This is what we mean by international standard. And without those sanitary conditions and inspection protocols, your meat will not be satisfied for export. Earlier on, there are many countries that want import meat from Nigeria. But without those conditions, you can't be certified. So this is what we mean by creating an enabling environment for both local and foreign investors to come in and invest so that we can export. So precisely this is it. It covers all of them. I mean, if you want to export, for instance, mutton, goat meat, you can't just sweep the streets, process goats, and say you want to take it outside this country. No. It has to be on a controlled environment, on a farm, with a good management practice, with all the protocols, all the injections are recorded, and the goats, there is no residue of any chemical in the body of the animal. That's what we mean by meat inspection and certification. If you slaughter a cow and you find a lump of residue, chemical residue, no, it's not fit for human consumption. Even if you can boil it to 1,000 degrees, and at that level you would have killed all the nutrients. So this is what we're saying, borders on public health. And that is the concern of this administration, that we are not realizing full value from animal resources. And therefore, we need to modernize that sector to be at par with the international practices. And we can do it.
All right. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much. And Ilyas, I'd just like to find out, what are the other issues affecting livestock farmers across the country that are yet to be captured in what the ministry is trying to do?
So, the ministry have captured almost everything we want, but the issue here is if you go into the production aspect, they are doing well and they did very well. But into a processing aspect, we need to look at it very well and do more. We want the ministry to go into that. If the ministry go into the processing aspect, because when you produce finish, the next step is the processing. The abattoirs we have in this country are not standard abattoirs. And for us to go and achieve those things, Mr. As the minister talked, that the byproducts, they are very, very important. And you can only get the byproduct when you get a standard abattoir, where you can collect the blood, the bones, the horns, the hips, and whatever. So we need the standard abattoir for our own consumption and for the purpose of export. If we don't have that, if we lack that, it means we will not be able to export our cattle byproduct and cattle meat. So to me, I only concern about cattle because my association deals with cattle value chain. I don't have to talk about goats, poultry, or fish.
Do we have associations for all of those?
They do. We have sheep and goat, we have poultry, we have catfish, all of them. They have a value chain association like we have in cattle. So my own area is about cattle value chain, which I think the abattoirs we have, we need to upgrade them. We have so many abattoirs and they need to be upgraded to meet the international standards. So if we are able to achieve that, then Nigeria is good to start exporting our product to other countries. And as well, we can feed a good feed. Because I was discussing with one doctor, he's living in UK and Nigeria. He said the number one thing you can do to give human being prevention is from what they eat. And this meat consumption is one of the areas where people are being infected from different diseases. So if you can feed your cow very well, they are good to eat, then if the consumer eat the cow, they will live healthy life. But in case where they eat a cow with a certain disease that can infect the person who eats that particular meat, it will create a serious disease that in some cases it can be a communicable disease. One can chop, and from that one it will escalate to other people. So that is why he said the number one thing is to give them a good treatment. Like he said, like the minister is mentioning, your animal has to be fed well, the medication and everything. So these are the things we want to. Then apart from that, where you process it, it has to be a good environment. In the case of processing, contamination and other things may happen, which after you take away the meat, people will be consuming a disease.
At the moment, would you say that the consumption of meat, especially from cattle, you say that's your area, would you say it's healthy enough at the moment with the way things are being done in the country?
That is why we are saying we need to encourage. It's not healthy.
No, just let us know. We want to know.
No, it's healthy, but not, you know, sometimes you can see a sick cow. Somebody will prefer to take a sick cow to market because that cow is sick. He wants to leave the cow and get his money so that he can feed on others. As he take that cow to market, a butcher who wanted to buy a cheap cow will prefer to buy that one than buying a healthy cow.
Cheaper.
As a result, if he buy it, he's not waiting for anything. You know it's a sick cow already. He will go ahead and slaughter it, take it to market.
So the association does not regulate that at the moment?
So this is what we are working on. That is why we are saying we need to get a standard abattoir, whereby a sanitation will be taking place. We have to make sure that no even sick cow will be in the market for the first instance. You cannot carry a sick cow to sell for business or for human to consume. You have to treat your cow very well before you sell. What we are trying to do now, if you take your cow, we have what we call Sarkin Zango. It's in charge of market. Sarkin Zangos are our members. So we are telling them that, okay, this should be put into consideration. Any cow that is coming to market, it has to be good to be slaughtered, good to be eaten. You know, we have a culture of buying cow from Kano, take them down to Lagos or Enugu. So, you know, if you take an healthy cow, before you reach Lagos, that cow will not stand. They have to drag it down. Some will even die along the road. So all these things we are trying to see how we can bring changes improve that system.
I was going to ask you, what you do when you know that a cow is terminally ill, just like human beings. You know that a cow is terminally ill, but you can't be talking about now treating because you know that it's in futility. But I think those are some of the issues we would raise with you when we return from this break. Please stay with us. The conversation continues after this timeout.
The business environment, to be honest with you, is extremely hard on most Nigerian women's businesses, and of course harsh for a number of reasons. There is no way you would increase or move subsidy and increase the price of fuel that it doesn't have the counter effect. It has been very challenging for so many women. I know that a lot of them have cried in one way or the other to us to find ways of intervening. But that is not to say that it is all doom and gloom. We will still have a few percentage of women that are thriving in this economy, but we hope that we'll be able to get a larger percentage. One of the things I've seen with even our local purchases now is that people are buying more made in Nigerian options of food, of clothing, and so on and so forth than the imported. So that again is helping some of our industries thrive. Surprisingly, the telecommunications is still doing well, and the reason is very simple. A lot of people are going for online options of skills in terms of training, communications, even remote working. And so you will see that people that provide services around those areas also thrive. But I think at the end of the day, it's about partnerships, collaboration, and influencing power from especially the private sector and even the public sector. But we really need the public sector to drive a number of things, especially policies, because the public sector has the national spread above even whatever we can do in our own small way. What has happened over the years is that even the government, for example, is being pulled from different angles by all these stakeholders. We need to harness ourselves to have strategic focus areas, and we should all be moving in the same direction, not using a competitive approach, but a collaborative approach. Secondly, in collaboration, we need to move with large clusters of decision makers. Instead of, the process of reaching out to individuals is painstakingly long and it takes time. And so we need to engage these stakeholders on a larger platform. I think it's very important to identify where you can get help in your own little way. And one of the things I've realized is that when you operate in silo, it is difficult for you to lift yourself out of the situation. Identify ways you can do what you are doing in a simpler way. And if what you are doing is no more profitable, why not find out what can you do in the meantime that will help you? You need to think outside the box and then connect. What you can do is also identify people and become a cluster to provide a service that ordinarily you cannot do alone.
Hey Nigeria, ready to breathe cleaner air and save money? Let's talk about gas. Drive with CNG, the smart, cost-effective choice. Fill up for less and travel further. Save money, save the planet. Switch to LPG for cooking. It's cleaner, healthier, and better for environment. Say goodbye to smoke and eye problems. Do you know Nigeria is a gas nation ranked 9th globally with over 209 trillion cubic feet of gas reserve? Gas isn't just for cooking and driving. It powers industries too. Cleaner, cheaper, and more efficient. And the best part, conversion centers are popping up everywhere. It's never been easier to switch to gas. Join the cleaner energy revolution. Choose LPG for cooking and CNG for your vehicles. Clean energy for brighter future. This message is brought to you by the Office of the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources. Gas, supported by the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA.
All right, welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. And our focus this morning is on the livestock industry. But let's quickly move away from that and let you know what's happening with the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. President Bola Tinubu is now in South Africa. He's there to co-chair the 11th session of the Nigeria-South Africa Binational Commission, BNC, alongside President Cyril Ramaphosa. State House correspondent Musbao Dan Wahab is joining us now from Cape Town. Musbao, what's the updates and what do we expect from today's event?
With the arrival of President Bola Tinubu in South Africa, the stage is not set for this year's Binational Commission of Nigeria in South Africa, the first on his administration since it was set up in 1999 to further strengthen the ties between Nigeria and South Africa. And for this year, a lot of activities have been lined up, including a one-on-one between President Bola Tinubu and his host president, President Cyril Ramaphosa. There will also be other discussions on trade cutting across sectors of the economy, after which Memorandum of Understanding will be signed again to further supplement the agreement existing between the two countries. This is actually the second time that President Bola Tinubu will be visiting South Africa. First was in June this year, where he attended the inauguration of President Cyril Ramaphosa in Pretoria for his second term in office, after which the host president visited him in Johannesburg, where they discussed how to further provide necessary leadership and lead Africa to greater prosperity.
Forming a government of national unity to stabilize the polity. And that is coming at a very challenging time for the rest of us in Africa to really come up with collaborative economics that will help our downtrodden and vulnerable people.
But for me, what matters most is to be able to have very good economic links with Nigeria. The two countries, South Africa and Nigeria, are very important in our continent. And when the two countries work together, which we are, and we do things together, it benefits Africa. It is the two countries that are among the pillars of our continent.
Both leaders have also met at different fora, including the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in 2023 in New York, and of course at G20 2023, and then this year 2024 in Brazil. So lots on the table to be expected from this event of today.
Thanks, Musbao, for that update. Of course, we'll stay with you, and once you have more information, we'll definitely get back to you in South Africa. All right, there you have it on the whereabouts of the president and his outing in South Africa. All right, so we'll get back into the conversation now, and of course, the Honourable Minister of the Livestock Development, Minister of Livestock Development, is still very much with us, and I'd like to just get to him, and I'd like to quote, when the ministry was established, of course, a lot of people were, skeptical about if the ministry was important, and then there's been talk around how this ministry would be effective, looking at the challenges before it, talking about high cost of quality feed, disease outbreak, farmer headers conflict, overgrazing, aging stocks, climate change, limited access to credit facilities, modern technologies, as well as inadequate infrastructure as challenges that the ministry has to deal with. Some have said this ministry may have been kick-started, but it may never fly. Tell us, how do you intend to surmount these challenges and, make it achieve its full potential as we begin to round off this conversation?
Okay, thank you. There are challenges where there are institutions and there are people to manage those institutions. Without challenges, life will be boring, I tell you. If you get up in the morning, you have no issues to tackle. Life will not be full, will not be fun. So basically for us, these are not scary issues. These are issues that are surmountable. And we've already spoken about the grazing reserves. We've spoken about animal health, and we do believe that there's still a lot to do there. For the animal health, aside from the fact that we intend to improve the capacity of the National Veterinary Research Institute to be able to produce, at the moment they are doing, I think, 1.8 billion doses of vaccines. We want to ramp up that one so that they can satisfy our national demand for vaccines as well as the West African sub-region. We do know that many of the vaccines produced from NVRI find their ways into the sub-region. So that for us is a big market. But beyond that, like it's been mentioned earlier on about the issues of sick animals that are being slaughtered and the rest of them, we want to develop the capacity of community animal health workers. And we do believe that, and then other para-veterinary professionals. These are middle-level professionals in terms of animal health care. We want to develop their capacity in conjunction with National Veterinary Council of Nigeria and other veterinary practitioners to develop their capacity, and they are in every nook and cranny of this country. I personally know one or two living near my farm. And he's very proficient when it comes to diagnostics and correct way of handling medicine and then treating animals. So we have to leverage on that, bring up their capacity, and then see them as private people who can go into your herd, treat your animals, and they get paid. That's one aspect of the business. Regarding climate change, yeah, this is one of the reasons why today we have a lot of challenges out there in the environment because of climate change, overgrazing, bush burning, and indiscriminate use of herbicides. This is one area that is killing the biodiversity in our country. We want to work along with Abuja and Napri to be able to get those grass varieties that were there before. And under controlled environment, using the pastoralists and community leaders, we should be able to return those grasses and grow them in the countryside. Because they are palatable to the animals. But because of climate change, because of bush burning and indiscriminate use of herbicides, some of these herbicides are actually banned elsewhere, but they find their way into this country. But that's another subject for another day. But I think these are the issues that we need to tackle to restore the biodiversity in the countryside, and as well as also get animal breeds that are more efficient. Let me give you an example. If a cow can give you 20 liters per day, an exotic cow, and you need 20 Nigerian cows to give you that 20 liters, which one is easier to manage? Which has more impact on the environment? It is the 20 cows. Because what you are looking is not the number of legs or the number of horns. You are looking for milk, products, performance. So if that one cow can give you 20, replace those 20 cows with one cow. So you have less environmental print and less carbon
to feed.
Mouths to feed and less carbon footprint. So this is how to go. And for period producers, what I mean by those who want to go into ranches, into piggeries, into dairy farms, okay, let's use green energy. Let us use green energy. You have a borehole, solarize it. You want to do irrigation, use solar pump irrigation, or better, use irrigation by gravity. That's how to cut on your carbon footprint. Well, of course, we know animals cows also emit methane, blah, blah, blah. We are talking about this with advanced countries. In particular, I attended a seminar here with some Danish business delegation, and they are making deep researches into this, and these are going to be adopted to our own environment so that we reduce methane emitting from our own cows. But getting high efficient cows is number one. And then number two, reduction in terms of CO2 production from our farms. It is very, very important. Now, the other issue of animal health, like I said, is something that we also have to look at, the ECOWAS Transhumance Protocol, which I think is time for review. And we will study those protocols and get back to the National Assembly, so that in a situation where, for instance, animals are coming from neighboring countries, we need to be able to monitor, quarantine them, certify them, and then give them a permit to go to, because this is very, very important.
Now that we are here, You just talked about National Assembly. How do you intend to navigate that? What regulations would you be needing? And how do you intend to get the buy-in of the legislature to, get the ministry flying?
I want to say with all sense of humility that my interaction so far with the National Assembly have been quite cordial. They understand the urgency in this matter. They understand the importance of this ministry. They understand the economic contribution that this ministry is going to make in terms of growth, sustainability, job creation, and reduction of poverty. So we are all one on that. And there's no element of compromise. It's a question of understanding the importance of this ministry and giving it the chance, the opportunity to realize its mandate. Navigating here, I think the National Assembly is a partner. It's a big stakeholder in this country. So far, my interaction has been very cordial, very supportive. And not to say that they will compromise on their oversight function. That is a constitutional requirement. But we need that support for legislation. Many of the things that they were talking about, Alhaji Bulama, they talked about sick animals. We need the legislation to do that. When they're talking about transporting animals from Kano to Enugu to Lagos and vice versa from everywhere, look at animal handling, animal welfare. It is important. And we need legislation for that so that we can be able to enforce. Cows are just dumped into a truck. Those trucks are not meant to convey livestock. They are meant to convey other goods. But simply because there is lack of awareness, lack of adequate legislation, anybody can take any animal into any car. I have seen camels being pushed into a small gulf with the head coming out, almost 8 feet out. That is not humane. We are human beings. Those animals have a feeling. They cannot talk, but they have a feeling. They want to be treated better.
What still is that you even have vehicles, the Yorubas will call it keromero. You include both vehicles and humans in the same vehicle, and they are all moving. Anyway, let me get to Bulama. I had asked you before we went on break, and then, I was asking how you would deal. You were talking about, treating ill cattle, ill animals before you sell. But what if the animal is terminally ill? And the second part to it would be, how much of a challenge is transportation for you?
One, for the animal that is ill, the ministry is in charge of that one because the veterinary are under the ministry and they are in every cattle market. The Sarkin Zangos always work with the veterinaries. So that is where we can get control of those things.
What if they tell you that this animal will die?
It would die, then it means the veterinarian will now write a report and they will not allow that cow to be slaughtered. They will bury the cow. But for the cost of transportation, it is very, very high because if you look at the change of things now as fuel price rise off, for you to carry your cow from Kano to Lagos, you are talking about 2 million plus. From
one cow?
No, I mean a trailer, a truck. If you are taking from Movi to Port Harcourt or to Enugu, same thing. Apart from that, we have what is disturbing us most, the multiple taxation in the highway. You see checking point here and there. Instead of them to, if it's, let's say, veterinary or whatever revenue they will collect, let them collect from loading point to offloading point. But it's not like that. After you collect your receipt, do all the payment of revenue
you collect from
where you load. Along the road, every state will be asking you to pay. You will be paying. And police, army, you will be seeing meeting some checkpoints along the road. They will be extorting. If you pass Enugu, going down to Port Harcourt, hardly you move 10 kilometers, you see a checkpoint. And in each checkpoint, you have to pay some amount of money. At the end of the day, if you reach Port Harcourt, you'll be thinking of how to sell the car because of the costs. So I think it will be good if the ministry, we thank God the minister knows about nothing you can tell him about this livestock business that he don't know. So he's the person that knows about it. So that is why I'm emphasizing that we need to have abattoir. Instead of suffering the cow, taking them live for this long journey.
You
It's
just
better we
slaughter.
process them somewhere, then carry the meat from that particular area to wherever it should be going. And if you look at our abattoirs here, we carry meat in bike. Some even
Wheelbarrows?
no, motorcycle. So which is very, very wrong. If we can get the ministry to help us with, even if it's keke that will be carrying the meat and a covered keke, whether cool or not cold keke, I think it will help.
Is it easy for those who in this cattle business to access credit? When I mean credit, I mean to get money to maybe expand your business.
We have never have access to it, and we are willing to have, because if we have, the business will grow and many people will be employed. So that is why, with the help of the new ministry, you know, when we were together in Ministry of Agri with other things, Ministry of Agri, they mainly concentrate in crop production. They do less in livestock. Even if they do, it's less. So now that we have our ministry, we are very happy that we have ministry. Their mandate is to take care of all the problems, the issues, all the things.
You don't have a ministry, it's
so
livestock.
We have the ministry.
It's livestock.
In other words, you are marginalizing the Ministry of Agri. But I wanted to ask the minister, because it appears that even now that you have livestock, those in poultry could also say the same, that there's a lot more talk about, you know, cattle than the rest of livestock.
No, I think it's a matter of choice. It's a matter of choice. And by all standards, we have had a lot of challenges from the cow sector and not from poultry. I mean, if you can bring maybe 3,000 birds into this room, nothing will, there will be no problem. But because we have been having pains from the cattle, and that's why everybody is emphasizing about cattle. Nobody is marginalizing any ministry or any animal. I am an apiculturalist. I do beekeeping, and there's a big value of business there. Probably you do not know, but that's a trade secret. I will not reveal it to you now. But for the benefit of Nigerians, in 2022, Nigeria spent 800 billion naira to import honey into this country. And it's something that with little or no capital, you can start. You don't vaccinate bees, you don't feed them, you don't put a megard for bees, you just put water for bees bath and some flowers for them to forage, and you get your honey. Pure organic honey. We have not marginalized that one. So by the time we come out to engage the Nigerian public, you know, to brand this ministry, all these things will be blown out.
How do you intend to educate farmers and, you know, those who are interested in the livestock business? Because, you know, that's another area. Because somebody who is used to doing business one particular way, or carrying his cattle one way, or his poultry one way, how do you want to educate them about the modern ways of doing this business and, you know, getting much more from it?
It's a gradual process. We are confronting a culture of probably 250 years. It's not easy, but it's doable. It is doable in the sense that anybody who sees a progressive way of doing their business will do it. But even before I get there, the bulk of the pastoralists are onto cultural holding. They are not in any sense doing a business. They don't bother about input and output. And all business about input and output. How much have I put in? How much am I getting over a period of time? That mindset has to change. It is a battle for the heart and the mind. And we intend to embark on that. We are not scared. My ministry, our ministry, under this administration is prepared. We are prepared to take on that.
Just before we let you go, Honorable Minister, we are running out of time. How much are you willing to get technology on board? Because the lack of data and research hinders evidence-based decision-making and interventions. So are you willing to embrace technology to get things to work?
We are willing to embrace technology. We have already embraced technology. Number one, we are going to do a cattle upgrading. We are going to get the best breeds to cross our animals to improve their performance. That is technology. Number two, we are going to educate everybody out there who is associated with livestock onto modern animal husbandry practices. Number three, we are going to do a census of the Nigerian livestock to revalidate the data. And you cannot do that just manually. We will have to do that. And by that, we are also going to do some animal tagging so that we can track and get the data. And there are different technologies today. You can put chips apart from for the physical ear tag that you number, and the animals, if if 200 animals are wearing yellow, that is already a deterrence for any rustler. Because you can't go to every animal and start picking the ear tags. You need time. Number three, we will deploy technology to monitor cattle movement, drones, and a communication center from the flash points. We know where the cattle density is in this country. We can monitor this to see cattle coming in, where they are going to, so that we can tell our ground counterparts, like this herd cannot pass through here because there's a flash point ahead. So we're already leveraging on technology.
That's a good plan. We need to let you go, Honorable Minister. But I hope you're also putting. I hope you're. Yes, he would speak. He would speak. But I hope you're also putting measures in place to stop portfolio livestock farmers. I hope you know that in the crop sector, we have portfolio farmers, those who do not really have farms, but of course they get all the goodies that comes from government. I hope you have strategies in place to stop that.
We know about those. We call them designer farmers.
Okay.
We will not. They will have no space in my
in your ministry.
Right. Let's take it just for a moment. Your final word, please.
If you talk about livestock, cattle takes 60% of livestock issues. So we need the ministry to concentrate and help us to grow more.
And abandon the others.
That 60% has not been proven. So there's no statistics to support that. Thank you very much, Ilyasu Bulama, National President of the National Association of Cattle Dealers, Processors and Marketers of Nigeria. It was a pleasure to have you on the program. And of course, we do sincerely appreciate you, Honorable Minister. It was great talking with you and hearing all that the ministry is up to. Edie Wokta Meha, many thanks for joining us on the program. And we wish you all the best. We hope that the ministry flies and flies really high. All right, so that's Good Morning Nigeria today. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ian Ray John. Please remain tuned to the NTA.
And I'm Victor Azu. We're glad you could join us and do enjoy the rest of your day.
The Republic of the Gambia is a country in West Africa. It is said to be the smallest country within mainland Africa, and it is surrounded by Senegal, except for its western coast on the Atlantic Ocean. The Gambia is situated on both sides of the lower reaches of the Gambia River, which flows through the center of the Gambia and empties into the Atlantic Ocean. The peculiar shape and size of the country are as a result of territorial compromises made during the 19th century by Great Britain, which controlled the lower Gambia River, and France, which ruled the neighboring colony of Senegal. Gambia covers an area of about 10,689 square kilometers with a population of about 2,500,000 769 people, based on projections of the United Nations data. The capital, Gambia, is Banjul. It is said to be the largest and most densely populated metropolitan area in the country. The official language of the Gambia is English. The country has several ethnic groups who have maintained their individual cultural traditions and heritage. Some of the major ethnic groups are similar to those in the Senegal and consist of the Malenge, Wolof, Fulani, Jola, and Sonenge ethnic groups. Blacksmiths, goldsmiths, leather workers, weavers, textile dyers, and other artisans are found in most regions, most notably the indigo-dyed clothing. The country is known for the beaches along its small Atlantic coastline and for being home to Jufori, a town.
This is the network service of the NTA.